Hello, this is Rhonda K. Kitchens. I'm a librarian at Big Bend Community College, and I'd like to welcome you to another Wednesday webinar. And this particular one is on plagiarism. This is how we're going to cover it. We're going to talk about the Big Bend Code of Conduct, academic honesty. I also want to let you know that in flux, and one moment, please. Hey, Kyler.
Hello.
I want to let you know that I am recording this and this is on Facebook Live. Is that okay?
That works with me.
Okay, I just started. I'll just start over again. And if you have any questions, stop me and we'll go over it. I think it's pretty straightforward, I hope. I'm going to show you a few things you may not know about and keep moving on. So I'm Rhonda Kitchens. I'm your librarian at Big Bend Community College. This is one of our Wednesday webinars, and this particular one's on plagiarism. Next week, I'm doing one on scholarly articles, how to find them, and so on. And it's also going to be live like this on Zoom and on Facebook Live and recorded. So this is going to cover these basic things: Big Bend Code of Conduct, academic honesty. And of course, that is in a state of flux as things are changing kind of rapidly. And it's going to be looking kind of different, I think, and have quite a few updates as things go on. TurnItIn, spectrum of plagiarism. I'm going to go over that section. The reason I want to go over that, because in a way, it mirrors what some of the artificial intelligence is doing, which is something TurnItIn already captures. So I want to make sure that students understand what that looks like. I'm also going to do a TurnItIn piece. It may be that all this time you've been using TurnItIn and not knowing that you could look at your pieces before you submitted them and you would have a chance to rework them. Most of the professors and instructors at Big Bend Community College do have the TurnItIn so that you're able to see results immediately. And I want you to see what that looks like and what type of changes you may make. I'm also going to go over common knowledge because that's a really big part of what we cite and what we don't cite. And also very, very, very briefly, citation and documentation. So the big thing here, what is plagiarism? I'm starting out here with the American Psychological Association, and know that the concept of common knowledge and plagiarism may vary from discipline to discipline, institution to institution. So make sure you're familiar with the plagiarism pieces that rule your area, your school, or issue, because they can differ greatly. Plagiarism is the act of presenting words, ideas, or images of another that you own. It denies authors and creators the content and the credit that they are due. And this is one of the reasons I really like the American Psychological Association piece, because when we're writing academically, we're kind of doing it in a system of honor. We honor the things that are written before us. We honor the people who've done the research and the work, and we use their work to build our own work, and we acknowledge and attribute what they've done. And this is a very deliberate and actually sort of beautiful process. And sometimes, and I'm glad it addresses this, whether deliberate or unintentional, it violates ethical standards of scholarship. And that's why this presentation is going to show you how to help you catch yourself, because you may not mean to do it. There's actually, when I go through some of the different ways plagiarism looks, I, for many years, I'd say, did one specific type thinking it was okay, but it was not. So even I learned as we keep having these conversations about how we honor and attribute others. Writers who plagiarize disrespect the efforts of original authors by failing to acknowledge their contributions. They stifle research by preventing readers from tracing ideas back to the original sources, because the scholarly record is very important. If you've ever used Google Scholar, when you go in there and you'll see the list of articles, but then you'll see what those articles were, who cited them. And then you can go look at those articles and you can keep tracing them back sometimes to seminal works from the last century where some of these ideas were born. And this is a very beautiful process that when we're working academia that we acknowledge. Now, to avoid plagiarism, provide appropriate credit to your sources by adding author date in text citations. And this is appropriate for APA, but MLA, Chicago, which are two other things that are used on Canvas, have a slightly different style. But no matter how it is and what it looks like, it's still going to acknowledge the people that wrote and presented these things before. Now, Big Bend Community College takes a sort of a different look. So APA lets us know, like, hey, it's a beautiful world. We want to acknowledge and honor those who came before. The Big Bend Student Code of Conduct lets you know that there's going to be sanctions. It's talking about if you attempt to commit, aid, abet, incite, encourage, or assist in this misconduct, the college may impose sanctions, which includes and is not limited to various things where you may lose your grade. You may also lose your opportunity to be at Big Bend Community College. By and large, in my experience, when a student plagiarizes, is often one or two reasons. One is like they don't know. Like I said, for years, I used sort of a way of summarizing that wasn't really summarizing. And we're going to look at that. And also sometimes when you have to turn something in very rapidly, you may make those types of errors. So try to stop. And when you see Turnitin as an opportunity to look at your work, make sure you take that pace. It would always be better to write your professor, let them know you need to rework something, than turn in something that may get you caught into this particular area. So we're going to look at some of these examples, and I'm going to show you something I was guilty of, I'd say at least most of high school. So here we're going to use the Turnitin focus piece because on the most part, using Canvas here at Big Bend Community College, and most of the places you go, this will be one of the things that you work against. And here I really want to tell you, it's not a punishment. It is a tool. And I hope this presentation, I get that through, that this is a tool for you to help yourself work on your things, like my particular item. Now, this one's pretty clear. If you submit somebody's work word for word, that is in fact plagiarism. Control copy, Control C, it's significant portions. And on this right-hand side, you'll start to see that's how it looks and Turnitin. So you're like, oh, that is something I need to rewrite and summarize. You can see it very clearly. Find and replace, kind of this one was something I was guilty through most of high school. I would use the actual sentence structure. There's a couple of these in here. And then I would just change out the words. Like I would use something in front of the conjunction and after, and I would just change those. But that really wasn't summary, and it wasn't putting in my own words and a lot of the other important processes in working and writing in your academic journey. This one is a remix where you take a couple of different sources, mix them in, but you're still using large portions of those pieces. Recycle, you're going to borrow generously from it and not even changing the order in some cases. And hybrid, you kind of mix them together, you break it apart. Like maybe if I bring something from over here and I put it between, it will be adequately summarized. And as you can see, Turnitin says no. Mashup. It's kind of like that, except you just put a whole bunch of things in there. But if you'll notice with this one, there's no effort at citation. Here, there was an effort, but it was only for one thing, and there's at least two sources. So that's going to come up. The 404 error includes citations to non-existent or inaccurate information about sources. Now, this particular piece is actually one that's showing up, I think, in ChatGPT, where it totally makes up articles, the names of articles, and in some cases, some wonky kind of citations to things that do not exist. You can actually Google that to find those stories, but it's kind of like, whoa, this is a new way to get in trouble, because Quillbot is something that's been out there that paraphrases and does different things. But when you start looking at it, you understand the way it's paraphrasing and doing different things looks a lot like these pieces, which will, also come up on Turnitin. There is an attempt here to do some citations and references, but they don't exactly exist. Now, as a librarian, I often get asked to track things down. And sometimes I am a person who finds that these things do not exist. And I always find it quite shocking because there's a lot of great information out there. The library itself has over 170 databases. There's no reason to make something up. So here we are, the aggregator. They kind of crunch the things together. They do have their citations and retweet, which takes significant portions, but breaks them up with 3 or 4 words. If you're really good at the idea of Turnitin, you may be aware that there is a setting that won't trigger it until 5 words or more are together, strung together. And I use that myself. So sometimes you might get around something with in one course and not another. And that would be the reason for that. So be aware. And the best thing to do always is to quote, paraphrase, summarize, and cite your work. Those are the 3 easier ways to go about it than this list of 10 issues. So let me go back to the main piece here and go to the next piece. So this is what this looks like. This is actually from my course. A student turned this in as an annotation. So when they turned it in, they didn't check their score. And this score is 45%. In my particular course, I like to have a score under 8%. Because it's annotations, and there's really great ways to write these to break that up. In my particular classes, I use evaluation methods, who, what, when, how. If you describe things in that way or a sentence, usually it helps it break down in your own words. Also, if you use things like SIFT or the CRAP test, you start looking at things in a different way and breaking up the currency, how they're relevant to your issue, the authority, and you start using your sentences in different ways so they don't end up being the exact thing from the paper itself. And usually you'll have a 0 to 8% when you use that type of evaluation method to actually write your summaries, paraphrases, etc. You'll see here that this person may have been able to put a quote here and give a citation, but it's really half of the piece. When you're working with citing and doing research, make sure you really pay attention to your assignment and your rubric. In some cases, block quotes, those things are like over 40 words that are inside of an essay, are not allowed. Excessive quotes, like would take up half of a paragraph, would not receive all credits, for instance, because what this shows is not just plagiarism, but a lack of the person's personal words, like what was really going on here? Can you compare it to your research? Put things in your different words or different concept with the other items you've read. Throw in some beautiful transitions. Quote, summarize, paraphrase, and cite. Those will get you out of these situations, which may look like this. Now, this is an example of Quillbot, and it came out a little bit before ChatGPT. It was the previous AI thing that was going to destroy us all, but it didn't, and it actually just became a pay thing so that a lot of people don't really use it. And if you're using the standard free piece, you're more likely to end up showing up in Turnitin than others, but you'll see how it breaks these pieces down. It even lets you know in Turnitin, these pieces also may be highlighted and turn you up as a very high thing. And first of all, it's very important when you're honoring other people's work, honor yourself by using your own words and do those 3 things: summarize, paraphrase, quote, and of course, cite. This is a piece from artificial intelligence, GPT. And I just ask it to write a little phrase. This particular one, I don't have it now, but it came up 3 different ways in Turnitin as being used in other places. There may be a limited way that it may be able to write your different pieces. But again, honor the system, use your original work, and that way you escape all of these issues, and you don't have to worry about how to use ChatGPT to trick Turnitin if you just use your own work. So let me give you a demo about how you use Turnitin in your classes. Let me go out and I'm going to go to my course here. I teach a course called Lib 101. It's academic research, and it's a 2-credit course that I offer. It's online every quarter except for summer. I'm going to go here to the plagiarism test. As you'll see, I'm using the student view, and I am playing the role of a student. I've tried this a few times, but I want you to notice you're able to come back and resubmit things when you use this process. Most of the time, I believe at Big Bend Community College, we've all adopted the process where you could see things immediately. So I'm going to go into my new attempt. I'm going to upload my work. I'm going to choose my file, and I'm going to come here. I'm going to agree to the licensing agreement and submit my assignment. Now it's going to be uploading my assignment. I get the gorgeous confetti. Oh, I have planets too. So over here, you see submission details. Click on this. You're going to see a little timer, and sometimes that pending stays there for a minute. So what I do oftentimes is I'll refresh my page, and you'll see that I have a similarity score that's a warning. So let's go look at that. At this point, you sort of understand what Turnitin looks like and how the report kind of appears by highlighting everything. Now, this piece is the actual original work from the Columbia Herald Tribune, and it was immediately picked up here. I'm going to bring it over, and that's exactly where it came from. I want to show you also, I did these pieces here where I paraphrased it. This is a paraphrase of this piece. And if you read it, it essentially provides you the same information, but in a far more compact situation. And I misspelled modern, but it didn't catch that. That would be another device. And here I did a full onset. I really wrote it and I really personalized it. Moses Lake at one time was sleepier than it is now. Post World War II, the population swelled, just over 10,000 people. And here you'll see I put a in-text citation that matches my reference. Well, if I put the right one, oh, it matches my reference right here. And you'll see that this particular piece did not come up, even though Turnitin does know the original work. It did not see similarities in my summary. I did not see similarities in this particular piece where I wrote in a more engaging style and put my own words and transitions into the piece, but I did still use quotations. And when I did use pieces that were specific, numeric and quantitative, and they were not common knowledge, no one probably knows that between, I guess, 1940 and 1960, that Little Moses Lake had 326 people, and then it went over 10,000 people, like in 20 years, which is a really big boom. And how we have some of the really wild looking buildings we have in the mid-century modern style. So if you see, if you go in, you summarize, you quote, you're able to break this up because Turnitin knows what the original piece is. And once I went through these writing processes, it did not address it. In fact, if I'd used these and not the other, I would have had 0% match, though I was using other information. Now, the problem with this piece is it doesn't have the citation pieces. And even though you summarize it, you still need to attribute it to the person who had the original idea. Let me bring this back up. So I hope that made sense to you. And while you're in Turnitin, of course, Canvas, you can like rework your work and turn it in usually several times until you get it right. And what that is, it's not cheating, it's understanding how your work needs to be broken down, personalized, bring in your own personal voice, your transitions, working on your summarization skills to bring it together. So now let's talk a little bit about common knowledge. Like, what do you cite? You saw when I was looking at my piece, I was really focusing on some of the numbers and some of the things that were not well known. Most people but now you know, does not know about our big explosion of population right after World War II. Common knowledge, and this is from MIT, is the knowledge that's commonly shared that does not require research, verifying, or looking up. That's a very important. Does not require research, verifying, or looking up. That material does not need to be cited. You're not bringing it in from someplace else. It's common knowledge of people. Now, sometimes this does sort of set students up for a little bit of failure because they may know something, but it's not that you know it. It's the audience reading your material. Common knowledge is very much based also on the audience that you're working with. Information that most people know, common knowledge, information shared by a cultural national group. However, and this is a very important piece, what may be common knowledge in one culture, nation, academic discipline, or peer group may not be common knowledge in another. You may be able to take apart a jet airplane flawlessly and put it back together and talk about it, but I would be in the audience not understanding anything you said and would need some sort of help and guidance along the way to understand your different terms and ideas. So let's kind of do a little practice to kind of help you orient to this piece. To cite or not to cite. The sky is blue. The sky is red. Probably internationally, we believe this sky is blue. It actually isn't, by the way, but we believe it is. To some degree, it's violet and it actually is red. But if you write something about the sky is red, you will probably need to actually attach something describing how the light hits our atmosphere, spreads out. And actually, there's so many actions in this, it's actually dizzying. And I don't even think we should say the sky is blue, but we do need a set of common knowledge pieces to work from. So the sky is blue. Generally, you would not need to cite it, even internationally. The sky is red. That's going to need some work. You will probably need to find something in a science journal or something credible to describe this. And that brief statement would need probably have a little bit more to it. Now, let's look at these two statements. The capital of the United States is the White House. The official residence of the president of South Korea is the Blue House. If you're in America, English-speaking countries, you probably would not need to cite this. This is well known. Even it's used, the White House is used to describe our government in its entirety. Now, guess what? In Asia, the Blue House is understood to be a similar thing, but probably not so much in America or Europe. So if you were writing in America and you use this, you might want to have a citation that goes with it, because that is not common knowledge. But if you're working in a class that was about Asian history or culture, that might be common knowledge. So it does shift. And when it does shift, it's okay to ask a librarian, a writing person, or even better, the person grading your paper, is this something that's common with us or not? This is really going to come up a lot on our particular campus and nursing area. Some of the nursing students have a common base of knowledge that I don't share, and maybe you don't either. And they will not need to cite as many things about health and medicine that are accepted and known to them than we would, working with different types of audiences. Americans celebrate birthdays on the same day they are born. South Korea uses 3 different birthday systems and shares its multiple birthdays cultural practice with Japan, Vietnam, and some other Asian countries. This actually just shifted a little bit because there was an issue with a lunar birthday that some Asian countries may be giving up in order to match internationally, because the date you're born is a pretty big piece of information and identification anymore. So probably American celebrate birthdays on the day they were born. Some other Western civilizations, you would not have to do that. If you were using this at Big Bend Community College, you would probably need to cite this particular piece and where you found it so that you could provide credibility. And if the person wanted to follow up on what is this, they could go read that piece. Now, this is the last piece. Long COVID is caused by damage to the vagus nerve. Long COVID is affecting many people. Now, this is a theory. It's not proven, So this would definitely need to be cited. The caused by function of COVID-19 will long for quite a few years need to have some sort of citation to go with it to show where it was found, what the research was, so somebody could figure out what you're trying to express. Long COVID is affecting many people. This is a very, very general statement, but the information you put around it, like many people, what is long COVID, those are the functions that you're really going to make sure that you cite. It's a little general. It doesn't really say anything at all, but the information you gather around to support that probably will need to be cited. And I hope that makes sense because it does shift. It is a question that we should have conversations about. And I want when you see it, you know what it is, or at least you know to question it. Now, I've said this, I think 10 times, but the best way to avoid plagiarism is quote. When you quote, you must reference the original source. You need to use, when you use the exact text, there are some functions where if you want to leave pieces out, you can leave an ellipsis, but you must use the exact words and attribute. And in most citation styles, they want a page or paragraph number that is pinpointed. Anytime you use quotes, usually a page, paragraph, or other piece would be appreciated in your citations, no matter what style you're using. That's one thing to look at. Summarize. It's going to be taking that huge text and making it small, but still conveying generally what it said. I used that example when I was using Turnitin on that one piece, which is larger paragraphs, and I essentially turned it into 2 sentences that meant the same thing. And as you saw, it went through Turnitin pretty flawlessly. However, your professor instructor would have noticed it didn't have any citations on it, but my second piece did. My second piece was a little bit more of a paraphrase. It's a little bit longer than the actual text, and I added some of my original work to it. And if you notice, it went through Turnitin with absolute ease, and it also had the citations and references. So that would also help me get past the rubric and the other grading parts where I have to attribute my materials with a certain citation style. I'm not going to go through these today, but these are on the library page. We have a plagiarism and documentation piece, and at the very top, I list these 3 pieces. If some of the ideas I have are a little shaky in your mind and you want to know them, I love Scribber. It's very short, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, well, maybe 7. And I tell you, 15 minutes that will save your academic integrity. I love these presentations. They're clear. Once you see them, you really do get it. So those will be available to you on the plagiarism and citation page on the front page of the library's website. Now, when you're giving proper credit, you're going to have to use different citation systems. MLA and APA are used on campus. Mostly you're going to be using APA in the English 101s and 102s and those parts. And usually, unless you're going into literature, you may not have to ever use those again. APA is going to be in the social sciences. I teach it in Lib 101. I know it's used in the communications classes currently and some of the sociology classes, though there is a specific ASA for sociology, at least the APA. If you learn it here and you transfer elsewhere in the social sciences, you'll have a good opportunity to become actually skilled at it. A footnote style is used usually in history so that it describes and gives other types of information throughout the text as you read it, not saved towards the end. This is going to be in our history classes here at Big Bend Community College. Now, a tip would be that the Writing Center also helps you with citation, and they have 3 different handouts, MLA, APA, and Chicago, and they're all in the library. If you want to walk in right in front of the Writing Center, there's 3 stacks of them. Also in the Writing Center are people that would be glad to help you. They are fantastic at MLA. I am not. I am sad to say I am pretty fantastic at APA. And I do struggle with Chicago because while in a way they do the same sort of work, they have a different capitalization. They may have an author and publication date that are expressed in different ways. Maybe this is italicized. MLA has a very frustrating use of quotation marks, I'll just say. And in some cases, there's a retrieve from statement. It used to be an APA 6th edition, but 7th edition, it's not. So when you're working on these, and sometime in your college career, you may be working with all three, it's really a good idea to have a guide so that you could look at the pieces so that you can make a good decision. Now, your safety net in there will be talking to your writing center and your librarians to get through this. And at some point, your career academic journey will have primarily just one of these, or a very specialized one like the Chemistry Society, and all these others have specialized citation styles as well. AMA, American Medical Association, has their own. It's very, very simple. And I consider APA simple, but AMA is a stripped down, beautiful citation style. And you may be using that in your future as well. Just be aware they're different. And if you're wondering why they're different, other than the part that I just explained with history, your goal is to take different types of information and formats and make them all look the same inside of your paper so that people know what they're looking for in the citations, and it has a certain beauty and order to it. These are a way of creating order and authority. So while they're painful, they're also beautiful and helpful. So need help, ask your writing center, use your writing center. These are questions they get. Is this citation correct? Is it in the right order? Is this the thing I need to be using for this particular assignment? Yes, this is a place you can ask. You can ask your librarian. I am weak in MLA, but my boss is not weak in MLA. And I have different people in the area that we all have different streaks and weaknesses. And e-tutoring, which is online. If you go to the library webpage, you go to the writing center, the e-tutoring is down on the bottom left, and it has 24/7 help. And you can also ask them about your citation and other issues. And you can write me anytime. You can also find me usually in the library. So this is the end of this particular presentation. And I am going to, Kyle, I'm going to send you this particular thing in chat. Hope you're still, yeah, there you are. Let's chat. I want you to fill this out so I can let someone know that you were here. And if you listen to this on Facebook, just write me via Facebook to ask me to send you this link, and I will do so. Kyle, were you able to get it?
I believe so.
Okay, awesome.
Yes,
Did you have any questions?
Not that I could think of right off the top of my head. I do not. No.
Okay. Was it fairly clear to you then?
Yes. Yes. No, it was very descriptive and helped me
Passionate?
on a lot of things that I didn't kind of think about until you really dove into it.
Oh, that's awesome, because it's a loving, respectful thing, I would like to say. And it also builds your authority, which is good. It's kind of the opposite world in a way. Sometimes when we're used to writing and writing poetry or whatever, it's a very different writing style, but it's very important as well. And I think a well-written research paper could make me just cry for hours. So different strokes, right? All right, if
Yes.
that's all, I'm going to be signing off. If you have any questions, reach out to me. If you're watching this on Facebook, make some sort of notation in the comments and I'll track you down. So have a good day, Kyle, and everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you.